I'm
Okay.
Harriet Newhouse. I am the Director of Marketing here at Herman and Wallace, and today I am chatting with Mora Pluchino and Allison Ariail about the new pelvic function course, which is, what is it, ladies?
Modalities for pelvic health.
Yes, modalities for pelvic health. So, Mora, let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself and what you do with the Institute?
Sure. So my name's Mora Pluchino. I've been with the Institute taking classes since 2016. I started as a TA in 2020 during COVID, and I joined the lead TA team. And then I slowly became part of the content team. And then I've also authored some classes about ethics and pediatric play skills. And then I recently also helped with the revision revamp of the pelvic function series.
Excellent. And Allison, tell us about you. How did you get involved with Herman Wallace?
I started with Herman Wallace in 2010 when I was approached by Holly, Herman, and Steve to write a course on using ultrasound because I'd been using ultrasound in my practice for many years. But since then, or around that time, had already been used. So since then, I started teaching all of the series, the pregnancy series, that helped write the capstone, the original capstone. I was in charge of the oncology series and the writing of that, and then came on with the revamp series as well too. So it's been
Oh,
fun.
yeah, yeah. And I've worked with both of you so often, and I love both of you. So thank you for everything you do with us. Can you tell us a little bit about this new pelvic function modalities course that you guys have created?
So it's a little bit of everything. It's kind of we that when we started writing out the outline and we were like, think of any modality, like just try and think of anything. And we had this list that was super long. I don't know if there's anything
All
else
right.
you want to say, Allison.
Of course there is. So when we are talking about modalities, we're not just talking about biofeedback and real-time ultrasound. What else is included in this?
So we, like Maura said, we came up with a list of anything and everything, and we are talking about vaginal trainers, anal trainers, things to help with erections, tools to help with clitoral stimulation, things that will help with bowel and bladder evacuation and voiding. We talk about everything. So it's not just the biofeedback and the electrical that is included, and that stuff's important, but it's going to be much broader than that: braces, belts, cushions, etc. And just anything that someone could use in their practice, from lubes to cushions to braces to e-stim, that will help be an adjunct to what they're already wanting to do, tools that they can use to help improve the treatment sessions for their patients.
Wonderful. And this course, following the new pelvic function philosophy, is all inclusive for all pelvises and ages, right? So we're
Yep.
not just going intravaginal here. We're talking about everything.
We ordered rectal sensors too, don't worry.
Excellent, excellent. So what are you most excited about with this course?
So I think I'm most excited because I'm like a very practice it, tactile, look and see kind of learner. And like there are going to be so many different samples that have been donated or purchased or being provided by CMT, who's our sponsor for this event. So you're going to be able to touch almost everything. The only things that we're not touching, I'll let Allison talk about some of the demos that we have, but there's not a couple of things that we just like could not coordinate how we could touch it in a safe way in a clinical practice during a
Right.
continuing education class. But pretty much I've been in charge of organizing all the stuff. I've been making fun little labels for everything. And it's just going to be so many hands-on, you want to look at this pregnancy belt? Great. Here, you want to try it. You want to see these SRC compression underwear? Go ahead and put them on over your clothes, please. So it's going to be really nice to be able to touch and feel everything. And then we have all
Yeah.
these demos. So I don't know if Allison wants to talk about some of these demos that we have because she coordinated a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I would love to hear about the demos. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I think the demos are going to be really helpful for people to see because we've heard about dry needling. Some people have heard about it, but aren't exposed to it, or the shock wave or real-time ultrasound, and some of these other demos with equipment that's a little bit more expensive. The there's a lecture and a discussion with an expert on these fields in the class, and then we have demonstrations pre-recorded by that expert showing how it's used in pelvic rehab, how we can apply that, and then we can give them directions on where to take some extra coursework because these are all things that do need extra education in order to be able to use
Right.
them too.
Right. So this
The
would be
other thing
more of
that
like an
I would say that,
introduction, like a jumping point into like the,
yeah,
let's say like the in-depth biofeedback course or shockwave or something like that. Ultrasound.
yeah. I would say that this is in depth for biofeedback, and eSTEM is introduction just for some of these more in-depth topics like shockwave
Okay.
and ultrasound imaging and dry needling. But for everything else, it is in depth. Someone will be able to leave the clinic knowing how to use electrical stimulation, knowing how to apply it maybe for a colorectal patient that they never thought about using interferential for, knowing how to use biofeedback. So for everything else, it's very in depth, and people will leave immediately being able to use it in their clinical applications and in their clinical practice.
We really only
Okay.
did demos when it was things that like didn't logistically make sense. So like you can't dry needle in every state. Not everybody that would be
Right.
teaching class would be dry needle certified. Like I'm not, it wouldn't be safe to set participants off and free with dry needles. So we didn't feel like that was super valuable to let them do on a regular basis. Or the same thing with like the shockwave. It's, a big machine. It requires someone to come
Right.
with the machine. And then light therapy, not everybody does that. So it was kind of when it
Mhm.
wasn't feasible for everybody to be able to do it hands-on, everybody got to learn about it and know where they could find more information about it.
So one of the things I'm really excited about the course for is it's going to be a course that's so different than everything else. It is so hands-on. It's very interactive. Mora is so creative, and we have games that we're playing. It's mostly lab time, and so it's going to be a really fun course. We have some door prizes. We have games that we're playing. We have, some I'm not going to say everything, so I want to make it a surprise, but it's going to be a different type of course than just sitting there lecturing, doing a few labs.
Right.
It's so interactive and it's so fun, and it's a lot of work and creativity has been put into it. And I think it'll really pay off because it's just going to be a different type of course than what most participants have experienced. And I think it'll be a good thing. So it'll be fun.
I did the
Yeah.
math, and there's actually on the first day, there's only like two lectures, and they're both lab preps. And then on the second day, there's like only one lecture, and it's like half lecture, half lab. So there's really not a lot of didactic learning in person. There's some lecture, but it's like, here's how we're going to do the lab lecture, not like here's all
Right.
the information about it. And there's only 3.5 hours of pre coursework, which is pretty amazing. If you've
That's
ever taken an
amazing,
HEW
especially for the
class.
pelvic function series. That's unheard of. This is a great fit for people that are like hands-on learners and
Yeah.
the people that we get the evaluations back that are like, I wish we had more lab time. And
And I think for me, like I know when I teaching assist, like sometimes everyone has their period. And then I have to like go into this little, like it'll be like a break time where I'm teaching people about menstrual cups and discs and all the different options. And like we go over that in this class. And then you'll have that in your toolbox to talk to your patients, or if you decide that you're going to be a TA, or if you are a TA. It's just like a lot of practical knowledge. And I mean, again, we don't want to ruin all the surprises, but like we have all these different lubes that you can try in a lube station where you can try lubes and moisturizers and feel and look and see if you like it or if you'd recommend it to a patient. Because not everybody's like me and they see a new lube at the grocery store. They're like, "Ooh, I'm going to take that home and try it."
earlier you mentioned CMT as a sponsor. Am I right that I saw that there's going to be a representative at the course?
Yep. So
Cool.
Earl or his daughter Ashley will be there with us. One or the
Okay.
other, or both. And actually, the first class, Earl is actually driving in his truck and he's bringing all the stuff down for us because there's so much stuff.
And
There's
that's the Philadelphia course, right? That's
Yeah.
amazing. For the live courses, because this one is live only, it's all hands-on lab work, everything in depth. What do you think is the huge draw for people that would be the aha to bring them in?
I think that having it in person is key for the topic that we are doing. When you discuss modalities, it's one thing just to hear that it's there, but and it's an option to use. And I'm not meaning just biofeedback or e-stem, but like anything from a squatty potty to menstrual pads to cups. But when you could actually see and get your hands on and experience in the lab how to apply them for a patient, it makes it more likely that that participant or that clinician will actually use it in clinic. And there's so much that someone's missing if they're not incorporating some of these, tools that we are talking about adding to the toolbox. This can really expand the horizons of their clinical practice, of home programs for patients, and just make a difference in the progress that that patient's making. And so having it live makes that clinician, I think, more likely to actually use it versus just hearing about it. If you get your hands on it, you experience it, you're going to be more confident in prescribing it and then be able to use that to help the patients better.
I think from
Wonderful.
my perspective too, is that I took my stuff when everything was in person. I had 4 years of in-person learning. And then we went to this COVID, satellite thing. And it works really great in so many instances. But the thing that was missing is that people didn't get that biofeedback, that e-stim on their pelvic floor or pelvic function one experience. And so I think this is giving them back that opportunity to learn that. And then I also know that, especially I feel like my generation of like the 30 to 40-year-olds has like demonized modalities a lot. And I even was like, kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to write modalities class because like they're not good, they're not cool, they're not cool. And then actually, as I started doing this, I was like, oh my God, modalities are so cool. So I think that was just like really eye-opening because there's, some people who are really high up in the pelvic floor world as influencers saying like, oh, biofeedback's the worst, like, oh, e-stim doesn't help. And that's just not what the research.
Agreed.
Yeah, so this was
Do
like
you,
a learning experience for me personally in my clinical practice to be like, I want to try these things now. Like, let me get a
yeah.
rectal balloon and do it. Like, let me, look at some biofeedback options for my patients to have.
Do you think that everyone in the pelvic rehab world understands everything that modalities encompasses?
I will admit, when I first was approached about working on this, I was on this kind of same mindset of Mora as far as the modalities is boring. I don't use it. Like you only use
Yeah.
e-stim if you have nothing left to go to. But in
Mhm.
talking to some of these experts, we have all these experts involved. I'm learned so much, and there's so much out there and ways to apply things that it can help so many different patients. Like talking to Sandy Gallagher on electrical stimulation and electrotherapy, to talk to someone that's really excited about electrotherapy was amazing. It made me excited about using electrotherapy and want to go buy it and try it for my
Yeah,
constipation patients and kind of apply things. And people, I would agree. I don't think that rehab clinicians understand the breadth and the wide scope of there's these tools. When we hear the word modality, we think ultrasound, therapeutic ultrasound, biofeedback, and e-stim, and that's it. But there's all these other tools, and so naming it the pelvic health toolbox was appropriate because there are these tools that can be helpful, from the rectal balloon catheter to menstrual cups to dilators and trainers to all these different things that really could be imperative for some people's progress. And people just think the modalities is the first three, the big three, and there's
right.
so much more to that. And just I think it's exposure and letting people know, did you know that this is a modality? That there, that a, a trainer is a modality, that menstrual cups is a tool, and talking about all of these tools. And so this really isn't a modalities course, it's a toolbox course.
I'm working on the biofeedback section. I liked it because I get people who call the clinic all the time. Oh, do you do biofeedback? And I used to say, no, I don't have a biofeedback unit because I have a small little practice. I don't have that, but I don't have access to that. And now, I'm like, yeah, I do biofeedback because biofeedback can be so many things. Like it can be using a mirror, it can be using a pelvic floor muscle trainer, it can be using a hand, it can be using your finger as, giving your patient feedback. So now, like, I think that helps too with like patient retention and answering patient phone calls. Because before I'd be like, no, I don't do biofeedback. Whereas now I'm like, yeah, I do. And I can educate my patient very well. Here are all the options of biofeedback. Yes, your doctor wrote biofeedback on your paper. And here are all of the options that I can give you here. So it's like great from a marketing perspective. Because I feel like
Yeah,
there was a research study somewhere in like Euro something. And they were like, biofeedback at this. And that's the doctor writes biofeedback, go see pelvic floor PT
right.
for pelvic floor therapy.
That's a great segue because my next question was going to be, in writing this course and doing these interviews with the different modalities, have you changed anything in your practice or started to include any of these?
I would say I'm excited about electrotherapy. I used to be like, not used to, but now I'm really excited to apply it and use some of the posterior tibial nerve and some of the interferential to help some of my patients. And in writing this and in participating in this, I've learned so much and different ways to use it other than just turn it on for a contraction and turn it up until you feel a contraction. And so I have an e-stim unit that I haven't used in 5 years, and I pulled it out and I've got batteries for it now. And I'm going to buy an interferential unit as well too, to start incorporating that into my practice. So that would be the big one for me that I would say is using more electrotherapy. It really can be a first line treatment for some patients, certain diagnoses, part of the puzzle that we're working at, for our patients.
I really liked,
Amazing.
we did like a whole section on penile pumps, and that was something that I was never really sure that was I didn't think that was a pelvic floor therapy thing, honestly. Like I was like, oh, we're supposed to do that. Oh shoot, I have not been doing that for the past 8 years that I've been doing pelvic floor therapy. So I think that was like super interesting, and that there's different protocols for different pelvic floor dysfunctions when you can use a penile pump. So that was really interesting. And then like all of the vulvar vaginal concoctions, I just was like spellbound by that. I think that was so fun that there's like CBD and there's aloe and there's the lidocaine. And then like I had used lidocaine in my practice and it like never worked with the one that I had used. And then like Pam Downey had recommended a different one, and that one's like amazing. So like that's been so great for like my patients with pelvic pain. So
Yeah,
I think just getting like other people's like what they use and like
it's
their tools
interesting.
in this toolbox.
With modalities also, where in the pelvic floor course journey? I know we always say after PF1, but where do you want them to take this, or what do you think is the ideal fit in that journey for people?
I honestly would say anywhere. When they feel like they are needing a little bit more treatment, something else other than, if they're stretching the pelvic floor and their fingers are getting tired, I need something to help them. Like anytime where they feel like they're missing some holes, but really anywhere. I think after PF1 would be appropriate, waiting till after 2C would be appropriate, just depending on their learning. Um, just kind of, I think really anywhere.
I would agree with that. I also think the really cool thing that we did is we did how you could treat it as a therapist or how you could teach your patient how to do it as a home program. So I think that's really helpful if you're like looking for things to give your patient to do. I know like I like to really be like, you're here for a short period of time and like your job is to leave my nest. So like here's all the tools that you can take care of yourself and move on in your life. So I think I agree, but I think honestly, if people took it after pelvic floor one, they probably would feel like they had a lot more tools in their toolbox for treatment in the pelvis. Especially if you're looking for like, what can I do in the interim before I, pay another whatever for this class that I need to take a more advanced class in it.
Excellent. What do you want to wrap up with for the modalities? Like, what do you want your closing thought to be?
It's going to be different than anything they've experienced as a in a con ed course, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So come, and there's a lot more to modalities than what you think. There's a lot of topics in there.
I think what's also really cool is that this was one of my jobs in the building of the course was to reach out to all these different companies and say like, hey, do you want to send sample? Hey, do you want to send us information about your product? So once they go through the course, they have this whole bonus section, and the bonus section is like everyone's information about, and there's discount codes. So like, the squishy vulva from Granville Medical, there's discount codes for different fun things like that. ONUT said that they would give us one ONUT for every participant that came to every class. Good Clean Love is sending lube for everybody. So there's so many like little add on bonuses, either as a discount code for providers to get something for in their clinic, or to have a referral code for their clients to have. So I think that's going to be really neat that you have like this awesome little section at the end that you can go through and be like, I'm super interested in penile clamps, and here's all the information that they have extra on that. Or like, where do I buy a penile pump from? Oh look, Mora's found me 3 different versions of that. It's right here in my bonus section. So I think that'll be really fun, just because I feel like again, as a TA, I get emails afterwards like, well, how do I do this? Well, how do I do that? And I'm like, it'll be right there for you. You'll have all of the information that you need.
Well, that is all I had for the official interview. Did you guys want to add anything extra?
Whenever I think of this class, I think of that scene from Parks and Rec where it's like the treat yourself day. And it's like, eSTEM, modalities class. And then it's like biofeedback, modalities class. And like anyone that you could list, it's like modalities class instead of treat yourself. There's labs where you treat what you find. So there's like a whole, oh my goodness, myofascial lab. There's a whole touch and feel lab. There's a whole like sex toys and
Yeah.
extras lab. So there's just a lot of, again, hands-on if we have not said that enough.
It's just so much more than I think what people will expect to be in there. I think people will expect the eSTEM and biofeedback, but so much more than that. I would say that's probably only a third of it. The rest of it is all this other stuff that it'll be enlightening.
Oh, the other thing. Sorry, there's more things, more things. We didn't talk about how long lab time is too. So we
Oh,
have like built in,
yes.
like it's like a 2-hour lab to play with biofeedback. Like you don't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
So we haven't had that opportunity. Like you get to put on the external sensors on yourself and play with it with yourself or with a partner. And then you get to change all that and do an internal so you feel comfortable and play with that in a bunch of different ways. So like you have 2 whole hours to do that, which is amazing, right?
All right. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a wonderful class. And thank you so much for being part of this amazing team and creating this course for us.
Thank you so much. We
Thank
should
you.
not
Thank
forget that
you.
Holly Tanner, this was like her dream
Yeah,
child,
it
and
was.
she was the one who created like the whole idea. This is us putting her idea to life. So we just need to make sure we put that out there.